Hello, my name is Talita Feuerstein, and this is my user interface design evaluation. So I chose to evaluate the Coca-Cola website first because it has a lot going on, and second because it has a lot of red. And as we've read in one of our assigned readings, red can have this bad connotation. So I thought I would look into it and see what other good things it had going for it and, how the red affected the overall UI. So the Coca-Cola website is basically a place where people can find news about any of the Coca-Cola brands, donate to local schools or causes in the community, redeem product rewards, and obviously purchase Coca-Cola brand products and merchandise. So Coca-Cola uses a lot of red throughout the site. It is part of its logo and brand. So some people may associate the color red with a lot of negative emotions, such as aggression or irritation. But it can also be associated with excitement and energy. And those are two things that perfectly reflect the brand and its products. Part of the company's vision is to include crafting the brand and choices of the drinks that people love. And they do that with passion for people and for their lives. So two more sentiments that are usually associated with the color red. So for me, one of the biggest strengths of the website was the fact that it has an accessibility menu built in. So even though there's a lot of vibrant colors throughout the site, which usually make it hard for people with certain disabilities to enjoy, the Coca-Cola actually chose to have this nice menu built in to help make the site more accessible to all different types of users. So here's an example of what the font looks like before any of the accessibility features is turned on. And then here on the right-hand side, you can see how the font changed a little bit once I used the dyslexia-friendly feature. And then here's another example. So you can see the font, you can see the vibrant colors in here. And once I used the feature called Smart Contrast, it changed, the whole interface. So now there's not so much coming at you. It still has all the words and the action button, and in here, just a little less busy. There's a lot of examples of interaction design principles in this user interface. Some examples of design idioms can be found, such as the tiny signifier arrows, to indicate the presence of a submenu. There's many actionable buttons throughout. So like this is one example here, shop now. The little person icon up here that indicates that's where you would go for your account, or what we've known to be associated with an account, and the location marker to show us, where to buy products. That's kind of like what we associate it with. And we can also see an example of a design metaphor with the shopping cart icon used. So it's very easy for us to know what that means. So it's very important to provide users immediate feedback and informative feedback when these icons and items are used. So like in any good design, this user interface provides the user with exactly that when any of these icons or buttons are clicked. A following action happens, such as, like another page will open or an item gets added to a cart, letting the users know right away that the system is working according to their expectations, right? According to their mental models. So if you click on a button, I expect that something's going to happen when I click on the button. And if I click add to cart, I expect that that item is going to get added to cart. And all the items that I keep adding to cart are going to be grouped together. So it works really well in that sense. So we can also see some Gestalt principles in here. When I first saw this particular section of the website, it wasn't really obvious to me that this was a scrolling panel. I did then notice the tiny little red arrow here, so I can see this one is kind of grayed out, kind of telling me that there's nothing to go, nothing else to the left. But because this one is red on the right, it tells me that there's a scrolling panel that can go to the right. So by clicking on the little arrow, it kind of helps me scroll the panels. And then I immediately remember what Riley said about animation being used as a signifier. So in this case, this is exactly what this is doing. And it's a very clever, design trick to encourage user to, to engage and participate in the website. And it also helps break up some of the rest of the static parts of the website. And here was another example of an animation as a signifier. So like when I first saw this, I wasn't really sure what it meant. I thought that by clicking on the little plus sign, I was going to add that to the cart. That was the most immediate response that I had, that the plus sign would add to the cart. But actually, when you click on the little plus sign, the panel goes from this particular smaller size here to this bigger size. So, meaning more, expand, you can see more if you click on this. So then it became clear what it was meant. And then I knew that from that point on, if I saw any more plus little arrows on the website, that's what it would mean. So the design makes very good use of the proximity principle by setting the headers pretty close together to the items that they go with. But they also didn't just rely on the proximity principle to signal which heading belonged to which section. They also made good use of the common region principle with the use of the blocks that contain related information. So here's, just another example of how they used proximity principle with the headers being very close to the items that they went with. Now, the website has a lot of reds and whites and blacks. They kind of make a good choice with, the gray background and the white background, and then using these bold font because it does help with as far as the contrast, right? I ran wave accessibility tool on these pages. I got many contrast error alerts, but mainly it was because of the red buttons with the white font. Although they did use kind of like not only bold font, but also like all caps in here, I think, just to kind of make that pop up a little bit more and help with the contrast. Now, I wasn't too worried about it in here because I know that it has that accessibility feature in here, and if someone needed a little bit of help, they could use that feature. Here's a perfect example of Fitts law with the way that the navigation menu is set up. So you can clearly see the meaningful visual hierarchy. So you can see that's the top menu, this is your secondary menu, and then you can see the little arrows to kind of indicate to you that there's more options when you click on those. The menu items are close enough to minimize the amount of time needed to go and select each one. But at the same time, there's enough space available in between them so that it minimizes me clicking on the wrong item if they were too close. The UI has a lot of great design features, but one important feature or principle is the Hicks law. And it's really about keeping things simple and straightforward. And I find that there are quite a few items on the menus and they're not organized in any way that would simplify the navigation. The number of stimuli makes the user work much harder to decide, which can be frustrating at the end. And some may even end up leaving the site without making a purchase. So you can see here, that even under the category, there's no rhyme or reason why things are set up the way they are. It's not because, there's more of dinnerware. It's, it's not in alphabetical order. So it kind of makes it a little bit more challenging to navigate here. You have to think a little harder. But one thing that, one of the most important parts of the website, which means the purchase. They did make it a little simplified. So, when you add something to the shopping cart, you can see your actions and it does a good job of obscuring complexity in the sense of, in this example here, the shopping cart, and you go to the next page, it gives you the checkout, it gives you the options on how to sign in. And then after that, you can see this little bar here kind of guiding you and telling you how many more steps there are, so exactly what's happening next. And it breaks down making it a little easier to follow. I used the Schneiderman 8 golden rules of interface design. So I was looking through the heuristics, and one that I thought that Coca-Cola did a good job with was striving for consistency. So you can see how, when you've selected one of the main menu options, you have this red line underneath. So it kind of tells you that's where you are. It's a good indicator to show you where you are. And then on the secondary menu, it kind of has this gray bar underneath. So this top menu repeats in all the pages, as well as the breadcrumbs here and the name of the pages. These are repeated throughout all the pages. And also the footer of the page is the same throughout. And you can also see some of that consistency with the buttons. So the buttons are mostly all shaped the same way. And then if the buttons are red, the font is white. And if the buttons are white, the font is red on those. So here's an example of the heuristic for offering informative feedback. So again, going back to this main menu, when I hover over the word give here, one of these menu items, it turns red and it has this red underline. So I know that I'm hovering over that word because it's giving me that immediate feedback. Here also, if you have this add to cart button, normally it's black, and if you hover over it, then it turns to gray. So again, you can see immediately that you are hovering over that and you are in the right place. And then the rest of the site, you have it kind of looks a little different. So you have the items without the add to cart button underneath. And then if you hover over the item, the add to cart button pops up. And if you hover over that add to cart button, then it turns gray, just like it turned gray in this other option. So it's nice to know that the system is working as our mental model expects. So here's one example of the design dialogue to yield closure. So, it doesn't leave the user guessing on how many more steps there are or what it is that they need to do to be able to finish that purchase. It does walk you through, and it gives you the number of steps that you have to complete, so you're getting closer to the end. So here's an example of the Schneiderman's heuristic to permit easy reversal of action. So for example, I added an item to my cart and I put a quantity of 1, and then I remember, oops, I want more than 1. So I changed the quantity to 2, and immediately this button update popped up. And here it's also easy for me to edit the item or delete altogether. So they did make it simplified by just hovering on the shopping cart. This pop-up menu appears, and you can make any of these actions right here and there without having to click on the cart. And then there's one of the heuristics that they didn't do a good job, which is reducing short-term memory load. So I kind of go back to this example here that it's consistent with the non-observance of Hicks' law, where the menus for the shop menus, the secondary menus, have quite a few items. They are not in any order that you would expect. So if you've seen collectibles before, it's not like you're expecting it to be after beauty. So there's no rhyme or reason why these are laid out the way they are. Maybe there is a reason for Coca-Cola. Maybe those are the most common ones or the most accessed ones at the time, if that's kind of how they have built their website, but the user doesn't know that, and it makes just a little bit harder for the user to navigate and makes them think a little too hard. So overall, I think even though there's a lot of red in the Coca-Cola website, they did a good job connecting that color with the purpose of their website and their brand, right? So when we think Coca-Cola, we don't think angry. We think something happy and exciting and refreshing. So I think in this case, it worked out in their favor that some of the way that we look at the color red reflects perfectly what the brand is all about. This is my evaluation, and thank you for your time.